everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a reading vlog entirely dedicated to The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book originally came out in 2011, but it stayed with having a pretty large fan base on booktube. I think it's a lot of pretty popular old school booktubers' favorite book. It's heavily praised for its very unique and detailed writing style, as well as being kind of the epitome of the no plot, just vibes type of book. It's a little bit hard to categorize this book, but I would mostly say it's an adult historical fantasy. The primary main characters are Celia and Marco, who are these two magicians who are locked in this long-standing duel and are using the circus as their stage. And it basically focuses on the entirety of their lives as they are taking part in this duel at the circus, and kind of the impact that the circus has on a lot of surrounding people as well. So this is going to be like a long weekend reading vlog. I actually took off Friday because I just wanted an extra day off to both do this and also catch up on some schoolwork. But we're going to be dedicating the majority of my time this weekend to reading this book. So with that intro out of the way, let's get into the video. Hello, so it is currently Friday morning and I spent like the first hour of my morning when I was getting ready reading The Night Circus. I read the first 50 pages, so I think I'm at a point in the story where I can give you enough of my initial thoughts about it. So this story is following two magicians that are named Celia and Marco, and I think it's going to tell their entire story chronologically from when they are very young children all the way through their adulthood. Basically, the setup for the story is, as children, Celia's father, as well as this other guy who, we don't know his real name, but he's called Alexander, they end up making this type of wager that when Celia and Marco are older, they'll have this type of duel as magicians. And we're not really sure at this point in the story what exactly the benefits of this duel will be for the adults. But then the story sets out with both Celia's father and Alexander training Celia and Marco how to be magicians and use magic. They both have very different teaching styles, so Alexander's very much more like book smarts, having Marco study different textbooks so that he can learn magic that way, whereas Celia's father is more hands-off and just like throwing her a problem and expecting her to figure out a solution for it. But at the same time, he's also like physically hurting her as a way to kind of push her to go beyond her limits. Celia and Marco also have different specialties when it comes to magic. Celia is more about like breaking and reassembling things and being able to control objects, whereas Marco seems to be more focused on making illusions. I guess my main feelings of the story right now is that I'm not as impressed as I thought I was going to be. I don't know if this is just my particular personal taste when it comes to like the structure of a book, but I don't really like that the story is told entirely chronologically. I kind of expected to go into it having it be them as adults, and if we were going to find out more about their backstory, it would be done as like flashback chapters. But because I'm seeing them right now just as children and young adults, and I don't really know like how their personalities are going to develop, I feel like I can't connect with them as strongly. I also kind of expected that since the book is called The Night Circus, that we would be spending the majority of our time in the Night Circus. But besides like this kind of brief prologue chapter, we haven't seen it at all yet. I'm assuming that is going to be the eventual site of the duel that they have, which because of the bet of the duel that was made earlier on when they were children, it's leading them to have this lifelong rivalry. But again, because the bet was made when they were children and they had never ever met the other person at that time, it kind of feels like they don't really have a lot of agency in their relationship with one another. And I just feel like that makes the kind of like rivals to lovers aspect of the story not as interesting to me. I much rather prefer a rivals to lovers or an enemies to lovers where it's kind of built more on like brevity and kind of like a fun back and forth between the characters. But right now it seems quite bleak for both parties just kind of doing this duel at the behest of their parental figure. I'm not really seeing yet as much of the like whimsy or like fun atmosphere that I feel like this book is known for. So I'm hoping that that will improve as the story progresses and we get more into the Night Circus setting. I have a weird tab like stuck in the middle of the book here that's marking the end of part 1. So I'm hoping to get through at least that today. For the rest of the morning until lunchtime, I'm working on homework for school. I just finished one paper, but I want to start another one to kind of like get ahead of the curve. I feel like last week was one of the first like big rushes for my semester. So I'm hoping that by doing a little bit more of the front-loaded work now, I'll help myself out in the long run. It's also raining right now, which is kind of miserable, but I think it's going to stop by like 2 or 3 p.m. and I did order a to-go snack for later, and I do also have to go out to Target, so I might do that. But the rest of my day so far has been pretty chill and uneventful, so I definitely will be reading more of this and will update you guys on it later. But I think I might also add another book in. Initially, I was thinking about reading the Ancient Magus Bride volumes that I have, just to break up having a prose book with some manga. But at the same time, I also started Crooked Kingdom a couple days ago, and I'm trying to not let that book completely fall to the wayside like I did with Six of Crows. And I actually am a little bit excited to read it, especially since like in the next 2 or 3 weeks now, the second season of Shadow and Bone is going to start. And I just feel like reading that book will get me excited to see all the characters again. So yeah, I might end up reading that, might end up reading some manga, but I definitely will be reading this for the rest of the video. So yeah, that's all for this update, and I'll see you in a little bit. So it's been a couple hours now, and I have some updates and reading the Night Circus. I currently am at page 150, so it's been 100 pages since I last talked to you, and we have started the beginning of part 2 of the book. A little bit after I did my last update, I ended up making lunch, and during that I ended up starting to listen to the audiobook for the Night Circus. I knew I was going to mostly be reading it physically, but I did end up manage to time my loan from the library so that I could listen to it if I wanted that option. And I feel like listening to a little bit of the story really helped me become more immersed in the world. I kind of could like tell the cadence and like the flow of the story and just become more interested in it by listening to it. I also think that was coupled with the fact that we got to learn more about some of these side characters that were introduced, who are working on the creation of the Night Circus itself, as well as what I thought was going to be like just a one-off chapter focusing on this other character named Bailey, who went and saw the Night Circus as a child, and now at one of the more recent chapters we are seeing him again as an adult, and the Night Circus has reappeared. This often happens with me in a lot of books where I end up getting much more invested in side characters versus like the main romance that I'm supposed to be focused on. At the point of the story I'm in right now, there's actually been very minimal interaction between Celia and Marco. It seems more one-sided, where Marco has realized that Celia is the person who he has to have his duel with, but he's also like very attracted to her and like mesmerized by all of her abilities. But at the same time, Marco also has like a side girlfriend, which is kind of making me a little annoyed at his character, just because I tend to not like situations where there is like another woman in the relationship. I feel like as much as you would want to push these characters as being like always meant to be and always meant to be together, it still feels like one of them is going to end up cheating if they have someone else that they're in a relationship at the start of the story. I was also pleased it's not really going to be like a duel to the death type situation. It's more that each of them is trying to develop different like acts at the circus that they are going to use to one-up the other one. I feel like it's taking the stakes off a little bit and is also better for like the overall theming of them as magicians. So I'm very pleased that I am ending up enjoying this book more than I thought I was going to. I'm going to try and read a lot more tonight. I feel like I am flying through this pretty quickly. But for right now, I think I'm actually going to leave my apartment and go out to Target. I need to get some stuff for work. And after that, I have to go to Will's apartment to take care of his cat. So I will report back when I'm home and hopefully have more reading updates. So it is now the next day, and I thought I would give you a update on my reading progress as well as my plans for today and tomorrow. First of all, I'll show you what I got at Target yesterday. The majority of what I got was for a work event that I put on my company card, but then on my personal card, I went in knowing that I wanted to get this item, and it's this really adorable bunny-shaped candle. This is new for like the Easter line. But I guess they might be redoing the packaging or something because this already was on sale for $7 instead of $10. We've been getting a lot of candles lately and burning through them pretty quickly. But I really wanted one that wasn't in like as much of like a disposable container. I mean, they're in glass, but you can't really reuse them. But I feel like this one is so cute that I'll just be able to turn it into like a little trinket bowl after the candle has completely burned out. So yes, very happy with this purchase. And for my type of aesthetic, this is definitely all year round decor, not just for Easter. Also, as you just saw, I decided to try and make a like DIY Starbucks caramel frappuccino. My For You page on Instagram has been nothing but like fun drink reels lately. So I thought I would treat myself and try this one out. It turned out pretty good. I mean, the flavor is there, but at the same time, I think it probably could have used a little bit more ice. I got a new blender for Christmas, and I'm not used to having one that can actually crush ice effectively. So it'll be a little bit of a learning curve as I try to get used to it. But as for my reading updates, I've made a lot of progress in the Night Circus. I currently am at the start of part 3, which is 278 pages. So I think that's about 100 or 120 pages since I last talked to you. And so far the vibes have been really good. I actually did break out the tabs and did just 2 tabs for scenes that I really enjoyed so far. Both of those scenes were not following the main couple, but we did finally kind of see Celia and Marco interact with each other now that Celia knows that Marco is supposed to be her opponent. Marco figured it out pretty quickly on as soon as he saw her use her magic in her audition for the circus. But Celia was not aware that Marco was the person that she was supposed to be fighting against until now. And it's very clear that even though they have this rivalry, they don't really feel any animosity to the other person. If anything, they are attracted to the other one, but are just kind of keeping a little bit of a safe distance. I think this book is not as romance heavy as I was thinking it was going to be going into it, but I have been really enjoying it for just like all of the overall vibes that are present in the circus. I know this book is really touted as being no plot, just vibes, and I think that is very true. You really just have to give yourself over to the atmosphere that they're trying to set up. And I think they do that really well with having characters that are both within the circus like community as well as some of like the onlookers that are just there to enjoy it. So yeah, I'm enjoying this so far. I think I probably could finish it today if I really push myself, but I'm going to try and at least get to part 4, which is at 379, so that's in another 100 pages. I do have some other plans for today. I'm going to probably go out with my parents later to their house and also to finally sell some of the books that I included in my book unhaul, which means luckily I hopefully will also be able to pick up some new books at this used bookstore. And then for the rest of the day, we'll just focus on doing some more reading of this, as well as I'm going to be filming a couple other videos that you might see before or after this one. But yeah, that's the plan for the day, and I will see you in the next update. So it's now the next day. Unfortunately, I got a little too tired after my excursion on Saturday to do another update for what I was reading with the Night Circus. I currently am on page 339, so I have not yet made it to the 4th section of the book yet. I feel like the biggest developments that have happened since I last talked to you has been with the relationship of Celia and Marco. Even though it's set over a very long period of time, I feel like we don't see too much of them developing their feelings for the other person. But at the same time, I kind of can understand where the attraction between them would come from, just based on the fact that they have the same like affinity for magic, and that being something that only the other person can understand. But I am pleasantly surprised because they don't really have any animosity for the other person, even as they have to continue participating in the duel. And there is a reason for why they aren't able to stop the duel now that they know who the other person is and that they like the other person. And that's because when they were kids, they were given these rings that kind of fused with their bodies. And if they ever imagine a scenario in their life where they want to quit the duel and give up the circus entirely, it causes them like excruciating pain. So they know that they are bound to the circus and to each other. But now that they're on friendly terms, it seems like their participation in the duel is more just of a collaborative effort. And they're kind of hoping that no matter who ends up winning in the end, that they'll still be able to be together. But yes, I'm still enjoying it just as much as I did before. The writing is still really beautiful, and the scenery and just atmosphere is really great. I think I already said this earlier in the vlog, but yeah, the first 50 pages just kind of threw me for a loop, and I just don't feel like give a good representation of the rest of the book, because the atmosphere of the circus is like a character all in itself, and that is really where most of the focus is going. So that is it for my reading update, but I also wanted to show you some of the other things I got yesterday. So I did go to a used bookstore to try and sell my books, but then I realized they were by appointment only, and I also didn't end up getting anything there, so it was kind of a waste of time. Although not entirely, because I did see some interesting books while I was there. In the end, I have donated a good chunk of those books that I was going to sell just to a random little free library in my area, and I'll probably donate the rest of them to my library when they're open again. I went and got lunch with my parents, and then afterwards, I did have a $25 gift card from Elaine for Barnes & Noble. And I did have a book that I knew I was going to get at some point, so we ended up going there as well as another small store. But I'll show you the books I got from Barnes & Noble. The first one is one that I've been meaning to get. I just wasn't sure which store I would end up finding it at. And that is Clariel by Garth Nix. With this, I can finally start continuing on with the Old Kingdom series. This is technically the fourth in the series, but it's kind of a prequel to a character that you meet in Lyriel. And yes, I'm very excited to read this. I definitely remember reading maybe like the prologue or the first chapter as like a sample back when I was in college. And at that point, I had not reread the original 3 in the Old Kingdom series. But as soon as I read that sample, I was like, oh yeah, we're back in it. I love Garth Nix's writing style so much. So I'm really excited to both read the short story collection that technically is like 3.5, and then I will move on to reading this. And then the book that I specifically went to Barnes & Noble to get is Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. I don't know if I talked about it too much on my channel, but I read Sorcery of Thorns and I really enjoyed it. I was considering buying a physical copy because I just read it through my library. But I figured this would be kind of a better fit for my current living situation because Sorcery of Thorns is quite long, and this is just mostly focusing on the relationship between Elizabeth and Nathaniel, which is definitely my favorite part of Sorcery of Thorns. So I figured, considering this is so much smaller, it'll still give me everything I want, but take up less space in my library. And I also love the cover design. The colors are a little strange on the printed version versus what I see in photos online. I honestly don't know if mine is like a misprint. It just looks a lot more vibrant and weirdly saturated than it does in the photos online. But the artwork is still really, really beautiful, and I'm super excited to read this. The next things I have are 2 random small decor pieces. The first is this little mushroom. It is so cute. It's like ceramic with like a glazed top. I'm pretty sure Joann's has one that's kind of similar to this, maybe a little bit skinnier, and it was like $10, which is a little bit of a waste considering this was like $2. But I think this is going to look really cute on my bookshelf. I actually have another wooden mushroom that Henry's grandfather made for us, but unfortunately I put that away with all of my fall decor. But as soon as the fall time rolls around, I'll be able to get that one out, and then they can be little mushroom friends together on my shelf. And the other thing is also mushroom shaped, and it is this little mushroom house. This one I'm actually not keeping for myself. I'm going to give it to my aunt because she's really into making fairy gardens. And Joann's right now has a lot of really cute mushroom-shaped decor, and one of them was a mushroom-shaped house, but it was like $30. And it also was sold out at the Joann's we went to last time I was in town with her. So I figured this would be like a good substitute in the meantime. And it's also probably better scale for like a fairy garden because they're a lot smaller. But yes, this is absolutely adorable. I kind of am like, oh, should I have gotten one for myself? But I think I'm happy with just the mushroom I'm keeping for my collection. So this is my little haul from my shopping trip yesterday. So that's it for this update, and I will see you a little bit later in the day. have to do the update with him on here because he was screaming otherwise. But I wanted to give a progress update for the Night Circus. I think this is probably going to be the last one I do today because my wife is going to be home in like 2 hours, and honestly I'm kind of getting a little burnt out from reading like pretty much nonstop all day. Oh, there he goes. I'm around page 406, I believe, so I have under 100 pages left on this book, and I have been enjoying it so much. I think it's really, really fun. The end of part 3 to the beginning of part 4 was like just drama city. I was like, oh no, everything's coming unraveled, and it's been so intense. I think this book is going to stick the landing. I'm kind of getting the visions of where it's going to go in the end. And depending on that, I'm still trying to decide if I want to rate this like a 4.5 or a 5 star. My kind of rating system between a 4.5 and a 5 is a little hazy, but generally it falls down on this belief of if I want to reread the book again and like what are my favorite scenes that give me like that special feeling inside my heart. I try to be pretty selective with my 5 stars, but this book is really good. I totally think it like deserves all of the hype that it's gotten over the years. And yes, I'm really excited to finish this in the next couple days. So probably the last clip that you'll see from my vlog is the outro where I will give my final thoughts once I finish the book. So I have now finished The Night Circus, and I really ended up loving it. I think I'm probably going to end up giving this a 4.5 stars. It's not quite a full 5 stars, and I think that that really hinges on the fact that I'm not 100% in on Celia and Marco's relationship. I think it does exactly what it needs to in the story, but at the same time, they're not really like very much a stannable couple, if that makes any sense. I feel like we don't see necessarily how they fall in love with each other, just sort of like what is the beginning when they first start the duel, and then later on once Marco has kind of like decided that he is in love with Celia. But the saving grace for the story that I really connected with was the character of Herr Thiessen and also with Bailey. Both of them kind of represent this kind of outsider looking in on the circus, and they kind of showcase what makes the circus so magical for the characters in the story themselves that you then as a reader can kind of project onto. I really liked Bailey's character, how he started off having just kind of like a childlike wonder in the circus, but then him growing up and then connecting with it on a deeper level. And I also really enjoyed all of like how kind everyone in the circus and all of like the fans of the circus were to him, and it kind of was like showing him a kindness he had never felt in his regular life. I just thought that was really beautiful and definitely a really sweet part of the story. It just kind of shows all like the beauty that can come from like having this mutual love for something, and almost like the good side of fandom if I'm going to extrapolate this story out in a way. But yes, I really enjoyed this book, and I'm very, very excited to read the next book that Erin Morgenstern puts out. Her next book was The Starless Sea, which came out in 2019, and I do have the matching edition version of that book to go with this one, so I'll probably read that sometime later on in the year. It's sad that she's kind of like a Madeline Miller, and she has only like 2 books, and they're both really good, and she also takes a quite large span of time between each of her books. So hopefully in the next maybe 2 or 3 years she'll come out with another one, and hopefully it'll also be a banger. But yes, I'm very pleased that I ended up reading this book. I'm glad I really stuck with it after not really enjoying the first 50 pages. I hope you guys enjoyed this more single book dedicated reading vlog as well. Please let me know in the comments down below what you thought. But that is going to be it for this video. Please consider liking this video or subscribing if you aren't already. Consider following me on the Storygraph if you want to see my reading updates in real time. And that is going to be it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!